the space there and renovating, and it isn't typically intuitive, but you know.
What if the town is to take ownership of the gym only?
Again, there's some
Okay.
complications,
Yeah.
but we'll try to get those answers
Yeah,
for you.
to me, that's counterintuitive. If you need gym space in your town, but if
Well,
that's what you
part of
have-
the problem, Ellen, I really don't want to get too deep into it
Right.
here, is that there are problems with that space right now, significant problems with the space, with the systems and
Right,
the
right.
space. And to be honest with you, you know, when our architect looked at it, he said, there's not a whole lot we're saving there. But again, this is going to be a big
Okay.
part of the agenda on the 17th,
All
okay?
right, thanks.
And I'm
All right.
assuming that's open to school committee members that would like to attend.
It's open to everybody. It's open to the
It's
public.
public.
Absolutely.
Because no one
6:30,
enforces
Tuesday
it.
night, May 17th. It's open to the public.
Correct.
Yep. Yep.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, next on the agenda is the middle school principal search update. As everyone knows, John Fauché is retiring at the end of the year, and so the superintendent has put together a search committee. And Kathy, do you want to update us on that?
Yes. The application deadline for applications for the position closed on April 27th. The district received 39 applications. So a screening committee consisting of administrators across the district came together to provide that first review of applicants to identify the candidates for interviews. And on Wednesday, May 4th, I held an orientation session for members of the interview committee. I had solicited input from faculty, staff, and parents, and anyone interested could submit an email to me to ask to be on the interview committee. We put together an interview committee of 9 people, and they came together with me regarding appropriate interviewing strategies as well as developing the interview questions. So it was a nice workshop that we had. And you have the names of the interviewees the people that will sit on the interview committee in your packet. Interviews will be taking place during the week of May 16th, with site visits to follow the following week. I'll revisit the timeline with you at the next school committee meeting so that you can see what will be coming up during that week. That's where we're at. We're thinking that at this point in time, through the screening process, we'll be interviewing approximately 8 candidates.
Do you have a timetable on that? What do you
Yes.
think? You do?
Yes, we do. We have a whole timeline
Okay.
that has been put out.
So we'd have a new principal before the start of the new school year,
We're
obviously.
hoping by June 1st. It might be
1st,
a
okay.
little later than that, but yes.
All right,
We're
great.
hoping by June 1st. I'll bring the timeline back to the next school committee meeting.
Okay, any questions from the committee? None? Okay, thank you. Superintendent's evaluation. The evaluation subcommittee, which is a new subcommittee of the school committee, has designed a new superintendent's evaluation tool. It was done by Mr. Bowers and Ms. Ericetti. And I'm going to ask,
Willis.
what's that?
Kathy, she helped us.
And the superintendent. And I'm going to ask Mr. Bowers, our non-member, to just make a brief presentation on this evaluation process.
A valued non-member.
Undocumented.
Okay.
And undocumented, remember, we like them a lot, though.
The process is changed a little bit. We're doing this in open session.
Mhm.
I'll hand out these packets of information for you to utilize in coming up with your evaluation of the superintendent. You do that by yourself in private, and then bring it back, and we'll have we have to set a date to do our public evaluation of the superintendent, and we do that in open session. And according to her contract, we do that between May 15th and June 30th. So I'll hand these out. Why do I have so many of them?
Well, it's a public document.
Ah. One, and I guess since we discussed it, it has to be. And while we're passing things down, I have another form.
Yes.
I have another form that I should have passed down there to add to the packet.
That's his, that's his
Oh.
You have one?
conflict of interest.
Do you want me to take the rest and give it to the public?
Yeah, I'll take them. I'm old and feeble and undocumented, but I can
Meeting will be over by the time he gets back.
So we have to set a date to do that.
I
Okay.
meant to mention that there was an advisory from MASC in your packet
Yes,
regarding open
interesting.
meeting.
Yes.
Very interesting.
So you can do a compilation,
Yep. An aggregate, as they call it.
an aggregate, yes.
Okay,
Are there any other questions on it, or?
so each one of us are gonna fill this out,
Right,
and we can submit this back to you, Cliff, right?
I think
to-
you bring that to the next,
We can bring it to the meting, but I think
To
we
that
could also
meeting.
submit it for, okay, all right.
Did you want, since we can make a compilation, do you want me to summarize?
You wanna do that?
I don't care.
Fine with me.
In other words, we can
That would
also,
seem like
we
it
can
would
all
be a
turn
good
them
thing.
into Karen, and she can do a summary of them, and then we could still talk about our each
and then we talk
individual-
about
yeah,
our
right,
individual ones.
right. But keep
And
in
this-
mind, these are public records now. These are gonna be
Right.
submitted.
And they will be
for the-
given
for
to
the
the
public.
superintendent.
Yep.
No, Mr. Chair, would it make sense tonight to schedule when we're going to have that meeting to discuss?
Yes, I think it would make sense.
And then what happens after that? Does somebody write up an evaluation, or is that the compilation that Karen's, how do we proceed from there?
Yes.
Go ahead, Kathy, do you have a
Well,
comment?
according to the regulations,
Right.
the individual evaluations can be submitted to one person, and one person then pulls together the comments into an aggregate document. The aggregate document is what is shared with me as well as the public in an open session. I can also receive the individual documents as well, so I can see the backup data. But you would also speak to your own individual evaluations of me at the public session.
Okay, and these individual documents are also public. based
They
on-
are.
So
Right.
That's correct.
anybody who wants to see our individual documents,
Yes,
And see the
Evaluating, you can
individual.
see
that's
okay.
correct, and that's why I get a copy of the
Right,
individual
okay.
as well as
And
the
I
aggregate.
would say at the meeting that we can, obviously incorporate things into the aggregate document or submit it all together as a package for, as our evaluation.
well,
think that's
there's
possible.
two issues here with getting the evaluation done, but also the superintendent is on a 3-year contract, but she only had a salary for agreement for
That would
1
be the
year.
next, that
So
would be the
step
next logical
after this.
step,
After
after the
this.
evaluation is done, to sit down and negotiate, at least the salary part of the contract, yes.
So it would seem that we might want to do this.
Early June, sometime early to
Well, our next meeting
mid-June.
is the 17th, correct?
On the 23rd of May,
Oh, no, 23rd, that's right.
we have the
That would be the time.
self-evaluation of the school committee coming forward to this
Okay.
public session. Because you already handed those in,
Right.
and those were going, the evaluation subcommittee is meeting tomorrow night to discuss the aggregate document that will be presented to the public. So you could then hand your evaluations
At
of
the
me
next meeting.
in to Ms. Ericetti on the 23rd,
Compile them.
compile them, and then it could be shared with the public either at the June 13th school committee meeting or the 27th.
I said the
See,
13th.
I think it would have to be the 13th
13th.
because
Yes.
the chair has to negotiate,
Yeah, let's schedule it
you.
for June 13th.
so that doesn't give much time to Ms. Ericetti to.
And let me say this,
Big deal.
that
Fine.
the subcommittees have done an immense amount of work
I
over the
agree.
last year, incredible, and I give a lot of credit, not that, Mike Mel and I haven't participated, but
Right.
Cliff and Karen have done a
Yes.
tremendous amount of work on these
Well,
subcommittees.
Cliff and Mike too on the.
And Mike too, yeah,
on
on
the
the-
policy.
On the they've been really churning out a lot of policy, the evaluations for both the school
It's a lot of
committee.
work.
Yeah, it is.
Well,
And-
the
That was what
open
you're
meeting
saying.
law changes have really,
Yeah, the open meeting law has
made
changed a
us
lot.
do a
Yeah.
lot more work than I think we had anticipated.
But it's a great job, I mean, it's a lot been done, I mean, these subcommittees have been very active.
Yes. I think what the chair is basically saying that he and I have been slacking and
Well,
doing the athletics.
as the
subcommittee.
senior
Yeah,
members,
right,
I mean,
exactly.
I have a quick question pertaining to personnel and human resources. Are we going to be reaching out to any of the principals and staff members within the school community to ask some of these questions, since we don't
That
have
is
much
a good question.
experience?
To answer
And
some of
are
those
we-
questions?
Are we providing any kind of like 180 or 360 evaluation
No,
coming
we're,
from?
we're not doing it this time. What we did was review superintendent evaluation documents from other districts as well as out of the state. And
A lot of 'em.
really, I mean, when we say a lot of documents. But I think what we decided to do this year is to trial this approach. However we gather information on our own is completely fine.
Good point.
But there is no 360, I know what you're talking about, the 360 review. There isn't going to be sort of soliciting sort of feedback and
Feedback.
assessment from others in any systematic way.
But
Of
you can
course-
certainly do that in order to
Yeah.
compile your
I guess
own
that is
personal
a
evaluation.
good question, Michael, because on that personnel human resources, we don't have any insight as committee members. We see Kathy sometimes in that role of working with her staff, but for the most part, we're not part of the day-to-day activities. So this
Right.
personnel human resources is almost, it's almost like an
It's
NA.
really NA,
because-
yeah.
Right, I don't see how we
But
can.
let me say this, the evaluation is, we're the ones doing the evaluation. I think if you want to reach out or solicit any type of input from anybody, you
That's,
certainly
and
can
again,
do
that's
that.
what I was at, that's okay to do
Yeah.
that, to.
It's totally fine. Conversely, though, we
Are
may
you okay
find
with
this
that?
year
Well, you have to read
that
the
this
regs.
approach needs some amendments. So this is our first year doing
Mhm.
this
Well,
this
before
form.
we say
may
anything-
need
Yeah.
to do it.
She has
Well,
some
just-
additional information for
No,
us.
it's just the second part
Okay.
of the OML FAQ
Well-
sheet, and it just talks about individual evaluations.
Well, that would be if members of the public did an evaluation. That
Right.
would not be public information,
Right,
believe it or not,
exactly.
under this memorandum.
It's
So
not public
Right.
that's
information.
interesting. But that would be if somebody actually, I think, produced a product, a work product of some type.
You're right.
They're not
So,
public record.
Right,
That's
they're
all.
not public records.
So I guess the other thing though is, one concern is, say all of us decide we're gonna call every principal, we're gonna call 5 teachers, it could be a lot of phone calls, and I guess I'm wondering if there's any process to.
Well, I think what Karen's saying right now, that's up to the individual members, how they want to get their
It
input in
is,
that.
and we may find that we're all doing it and it creates burden, and we learn from that.
Yeah, because I was gonna say in the
Yeah.
future, maybe, and I don't know if this is even allowed, but would it be allowed where the school committee meets with the principals to get input? Is that not allowed?
I've never heard of that being done.
Okay, I'm
Yeah,
wondering.
sure. I know that it's the purview of the school committee to evaluate the superintendent
Right.
and hire or fire and all of that.
Right.
As far as, I'm not quite sure about it. I've never heard of that, any other process.
I just don't, I'm thinking of putting undue burden on people if we all start calling.
Right,
You know what I'm saying?
right.
So,
I would, I'm
oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
Go
Cliff.
Good, Karen.
So if you actually look at some of the things that we indicate under human resources, some of this it's meant to be on the surface, superficial and very obvious, not just on a nitty-gritty, okay, is communication between the principals and the superintendent working, and is the environment for professional growth supportive? A lot of this stuff, if we find that we don't know, then this might not be appropriate for us to evaluate, and we need to know that. So I would just go through the exercise, and if you find that this is not working,
Well, maybe we can put in the comments too that we need.
I don't know, right?
Or we need more information to, make a judgment on this, in this category or something.
Right.
Look, essentially, this is a work in progress, and
Right.
it's going to have to evolve. It's a whole lot more than we've done in the past.
No, it's good.
So,
I just
yeah,
don't want,
yeah.
I don't want,
Raising a very important issue.
I don't
as
want
well.
staff to be overwhelmed by.
In the past, the only thing that we've done really to evaluate the superintendent was evaluate his
Goals,
goals.
right.
And how well he did on the goals, so.
Sorry, Cliff had a
And-
point.
Yeah, Cliff, go ahead.
And I would hope that what we're doing is have our evaluation, not something we go out and scurry around and gather information on today or next week or the next 2 weeks, but what we have observed over the past time period, not
Mhm.
full year yet,
Yep.
that we've had Kathleen on
But I
on
think
board.
I think you get a bigger view or a better perspective of the entire situation if we solicit feedback from the people that report to her.
Well, I think for this time around, Mike, certainly if
I mean,
any-
I'm just saying
yeah,
that
individual
I
members
don't
could
think
do
we
that.
should just throw it out the window.
Yeah.
And
It's valid. That's a valid point. We just need to consider that in the process.
But I think for this evaluation, because of the time seems to be a little bit of the essence with the contract and everything, that each member take it upon themselves to determine how they're going to get that information so they can make an informed of evaluation, okay? And as Karen says, this thing is changing, and it could change next year based on the input we get this year.
And over the next year, knowing that this is what we have coming up,